You know what's funny? Right now, in this very moment, someone somewhere is waiting, waiting for permission, waiting for approval, waiting for someone to hold their hand and tell them it's okay to dream, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect partner, the perfect circumstances. And while they wait, life is happening. Dreams are dying. Potential is evaporating like morning dew under a scorching sun. And the saddest part, they don't even realize that the person they're waiting for is themselves. I want to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable, something that might shake the very foundation of what you believe about success, about relationships, about life itself. Are you ready? Here it is. The greatest journey you will ever take in your life is the one you take alone, not because you have to be isolated, not because you should push everyone away, but because there comes a moment in every person's life where they have to stand up, look in the mirror, and decide who they're going to become, independent of everyone else's opinions, everyone else's expectations, everyone else's limitations. Think about it. When you came into this world, you came alone. When you leave this world, you'll leave alone. Everything in between, all these connections, all these relationships, all these people, they're beautiful, they're necessary, they're part of what makes life worth living. But your journey, your growth, your transformation, that's yours and yours alone. Nobody can do your push-ups for you. Nobody can dream your dreams for you. Nobody can walk your path for you. I remember a conversation I had years ago with someone I deeply admired. I was at a crossroads in my life, paralyzed by fear, desperately seeking validation. I asked them, "What should I do? What would you do if you were me?" And you know what they said? They looked at me with these piercing eyes and said, "That's the wrong question. The question isn't what I would do. The question is, what would the strongest version of you do? What would the person you're capable of becoming do in this situation?" That question changed everything, because suddenly I realized I was giving my power away. I was outsourcing my decisions, my courage, my life to other people. And the scariest part, I was comfortable doing it. Because when you let other people make decisions for you, you also get to blame them when things go wrong. You get to say, well, they told me to do it. You get to avoid responsibility. You get to stay small and safe and unchallenged. But here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Staying small will kill you. Maybe not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, it will absolutely destroy you. Because you were not designed to be small. You were not created to play it safe. You were not put on this earth to live a mediocre life, constantly looking over your shoulder for approval, constantly dimming your light so others feel comfortable, constantly sacrificing your dreams at the altar of other people's fears. Let me take you back to a moment that defined my entire trajectory. I was 17 years old, standing in the airport with 2 suitcases and a dream that everyone around me thought was impossible. I was leaving everything familiar, everything comfortable, everything safe. My family was concerned. My friends thought I was crazy. People who claimed to love me were listing all the reasons why I would fail. And honestly, part of me believed them. Part of me wanted to stay. Part of me wanted to choose the predictable path, the safe path, the path that wouldn't disappoint anyone. But there was this tiny voice inside me, this whisper that kept getting louder. If you don't do this now, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what if. You'll spend decades playing it safe, and one day you'll wake up at 65 years old, full of regrets, full of should-haves and could-haves, and you'll realize you wasted your one precious life trying to make everyone else comfortable. So I got on that plane, alone, terrified, excited. And let me tell you, the first few months were hell, absolute hell. I knew nobody. I had no connections. I had no safety net. Every single day was a battle between giving up and pushing forward. I cried myself to sleep more nights than I can count. I questioned my decision 1,000 times. I felt lonely in ways I didn't even know were possible. But something incredible happened in that loneliness. I found myself. I found strength I didn't know I had. I found resilience that had been buried under layers of comfort and complacency. I found a voice that had been silenced by the constant noise of other people's opinions. I found out who I was when nobody was watching, when nobody was cheering, when nobody was there to catch me if I fell. And that's what walking alone teaches you. It strips away all the pretense. It removes all the masks. It forces you to confront the real you, not the version you present to the world, not the version your parents want you to be, not the version your partner fell in love with, but the raw, unfiltered, authentic you. And once you meet that person, once you really know yourself, everything changes because you stop seeking validation from external sources. You stop measuring your worth by other people's standards. You stop living your life like it's a popularity contest. There's this beautiful quote by Rainer Maria Rilke: "The only journey is the one within." But we spend so much time running from that journey. We fill our lives with noise, with distractions, with other people's problems, with busy work, with anything that prevents us from sitting alone with our thoughts, with our fears, with our dreams, with our truth. We're terrified of silence because in silence we have to face ourselves. And for most people, that's the scariest thing in the world. Why? Because when you're alone with yourself, you can't lie, you can't pretend, you can't perform. All those stories you tell yourself about why you can't do something, all those excuses you make, all those limitations you've accepted, they all come crashing down, and you're forced to admit the truth. The only thing standing between you and your dreams is you, not your circumstances, not your past, not other people. That's a hard pill to swallow. It's easier to blame the world. It's easier to say, I'm not successful because I didn't have the right opportunities. I'm not happy because I haven't found the right person. I'm not fulfilled because I don't have enough money. We create these elaborate stories to protect ourselves from the uncomfortable truth that we are the authors of our own lives. We are writing the story every single day with our choices, our actions, our beliefs. I want you to think about someone in your life right now who's holding you back. Maybe it's a friend who constantly discourages your dreams. Maybe it's a family member who projects their fears onto you. Maybe it's a partner who wants you to stay small so they don't feel threatened. Now I want you to understand something crucial. They're not holding you back. You are holding you back by giving them that power. You are choosing to value their opinion more than your potential. You are choosing their comfort over your growth. And I get it. It's hard. These might be people you love. These might be people who love you. But here's what I've learned. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. Real love doesn't ask you to abandon your dreams. Real love doesn't ask you to betray yourself. Real love says, I see you. I see your potential. I see your light. And even though it terrifies me, even though it challenges me, even though it means you might outgrow me, I support you. I celebrate you. I stand beside you as you become who you're meant to be. If the people in your life can't do that, you have a decision to make. And yes, it might mean walking alone for a while. It might mean losing people you thought would be in your life forever. It might mean facing judgment, criticism, rejection. But let me ask you this, what's the alternative? Spending your life trying to fit into boxes other people designed for you. Dying with your music still inside you. Living with regret. There's a story about a farmer who had a donkey. One day, the donkey fell into a deep well. The farmer heard the donkey braying and crying for help. He looked at the situation and decided the donkey was old and the well needed to be filled anyway. So he called his neighbors and they started shoveling dirt into the well to bury the donkey. At first, the donkey panicked and cried louder. But then something amazing happened. He realized that every time a shovel of dirt landed on his back, he could shake it off and step up. Shovel after shovel, he kept shaking it off and stepping up. Eventually, he stepped high enough to walk out of the well. That's what walking alone teaches you. People are going to throw dirt on you. Life is going to throw dirt on you. Circumstances, setbacks, failures, rejections, they're all going to pile up, and you have a choice. You can let it bury you, or you can shake it off and step up. You can use every obstacle as a stepping stone. You can transform every setback into a setup for a comeback. But you can't do that when you're constantly looking for someone to rescue you. You can't do that when you're waiting for permission. You can't do that when you're dependent on external validation. You have to develop an internal compass. An internal strength, an internal belief that says, no matter what happens, no matter who leaves, no matter what falls apart, I will be okay. Because I have me, and I am enough. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Walking alone doesn't mean being a lone wolf who rejects all help and support. It doesn't mean building walls around your heart and never letting anyone in. It doesn't mean arrogance or isolation. What it means is self-reliance. What it means is inner strength. What it means is having the courage to stand on your own 2 feet, to trust your own judgment, to honor your own truth, while still remaining open to connection, to love, to collaboration. The strongest people I know are the ones who can walk alone but choose to walk together. They don't need anyone, but they want meaningful connections. They're not looking for someone to complete them because they're already whole. They're looking for someone to complement them, to share the journey with, to grow alongside. And that's when relationships become beautiful. When two whole people come together, not two halves desperately trying to become whole. I think about all the times in my life when I felt most alone. Standing on stage at beauty pageants, knowing that one wrong answer could cost me everything. Walking into audition rooms where nobody knew my name and nobody cared about my dreams. Sitting in a foreign country, trying to break into an industry that didn't look like me, didn't sound like me, didn't want me. Moving to another continent to chase opportunities in a completely different entertainment landscape. Every single one of those moments required me to dig deep, to find strength I didn't know I had, to bet on myself when nobody else would. And you know what? I failed. A lot. I failed auditions. I failed tests. I failed relationships. I failed at things I was sure I would succeed at. And in those moments of failure, when I was alone with my disappointment, with my shattered expectations, with my bruised ego, I had 2 choices. I could quit or I could learn. I could see failure as the end, or I could see it as information, as feedback, as a redirection towards something better. Walking alone taught me that failure is not fatal. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's not a sign that you should give up. It's simply data. It's the universe's way of saying, not that way. Try this way. But we've been conditioned to fear failure so much that we don't even try. We stay in jobs we hate because at least it's secure. We stay in relationships that drain us because at least we're not alone. We stay in cities we've outgrown because at least it's familiar. We sacrifice our dreams on the altar of security and we call it being responsible. But what if I told you that the most irresponsible thing you could do is waste your potential? What if I told you that playing it safe is actually the riskiest move of all? Because when you play it safe, you're guaranteed to live a life of mediocrity. You're guaranteed to reach the end of your life with a list of regrets. You're guaranteed to wonder what could have been if only you had the courage to try. There's a study that was done with elderly people in hospice care, asking them about their biggest regrets. You know what the #1 regret was? Not living a life true to themselves, not having the courage to pursue their dreams, spending their lives living according to other people's expectations instead of their own desires. They didn't regret the things they did. They regretted the things they didn't do, the risks they didn't take, the words they didn't say, the dreams they didn't chase. Don't let that be you. Don't reach the end of your life and realize you spent it trying to please people who weren't even paying attention. Don't realize too late that you had the power all along, you just never used it. Don't discover on your deathbed that you were capable of so much more. You were just too afraid to walk alone. I remember reading about this concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It's when an animal or a person is repeatedly subjected to an adverse situation that they can't escape, so they learn to just accept it. Even when the circumstances change and escape becomes possible, they don't even try because they've learned to be helpless. They've internalized the belief that they have no power, no control, no options. How many of us are living in learned helplessness right now? How many of us have accepted circumstances that we could actually change? How many of us have stopped trying because we failed a few times? How many of us have bought into the story that this is just how life is, this is all we deserve, this is our lot in life? I'm here to tell you that's a lie. That's a story you've been telling yourself, and stories can be rewritten. You are not stuck. You are not powerless. You are not defined by your past, your failures, your circumstances or other people's opinions. You are defined by what you choose to do right now, in this moment, with the information and resources you have. Walking alone means taking responsibility for your life. All of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. It means stopping the blame game, stopping the victim mentality, stopping the endless excuses. It means looking at your life exactly as it is right now and saying, okay, this is where I am. This is what I have. This is what I'm working with. Now, what am I going to do about it? That's power. That's freedom. That's the beginning of transformation. Because as long as you're blaming external circumstances, you're giving away your power. You're saying, my life is being controlled by forces outside of me, and I'm helpless to change it. But the moment you take responsibility, you take back your power. You become the creator of your life instead of a victim of your circumstances. Now, let me talk about fear for a moment. Because fear is the number one thing that keeps people from walking alone, from taking risks, from pursuing their dreams. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of being alone. We're afraid of success, believe it or not. We're afraid of what we might lose. We're afraid of the unknown. But here's what I've learned about fear. It's not the enemy. Fear is information. Fear is your mind's way of flagging something that matters to you. You don't feel fear about things you don't care about. You feel fear when something is important, when the stakes are high, when you're about to step outside your comfort zone. So instead of seeing fear as a stop sign, see it as a compass. It's pointing you toward growth. Every time I've been truly terrified, every time I've felt that sick feeling in my stomach, that voice in my head screaming at me to turn back, to play it safe, to choose the comfortable option, I've learned to lean into it. Because on the other side of that fear is everything I want. On the other side of that fear is growth, is opportunity, is the next level version of myself. You know what's interesting? The word courage comes from the Latin word cor, which means heart. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. Courage means you feel the fear and you do it anyway. Courage means you acknowledge the risk and you take it anyway. Courage means you know you might fail and you try anyway. And let me tell you something about failure that might change your perspective. Failure is proof that you tried. Failure is proof that you got in the arena. Failure is proof that you didn't let fear paralyze you. There are millions of people out there who never fail because they never try. They stay on the sidelines, judging, criticizing, offering unsolicited advice to people who are actually in the game. Don't be one of those people. Be someone who fails, who learns, who gets back up, who tries again. There's a beautiful quote by Theodore Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the door of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. That's what walking alone is about. It's about daring greatly. It's about getting in the arena. It's about being willing to have your face marred by dust and sweat and blood. It's about spending yourself in a worthy cause. Your dreams are a worthy cause. Your growth is a worthy cause. Your potential is a worthy cause. I want to talk about loneliness for a moment because I think it's important. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. You can be alone and feel completely at peace, completely whole, completely content. And you can be surrounded by people and feel desperately lonely. Loneliness isn't about the absence of people. It's about the absence of connection, of understanding, of being truly seen and known. When I talk about walking alone, I'm not talking about isolating yourself. I'm talking about developing such a strong relationship with yourself that you don't need other people to feel whole. I'm talking about getting comfortable with solitude. I'm talking about learning to enjoy your own company. Because here's the truth, if you can't be happy alone, you won't be happy with someone else. You'll just be using them to fill a void that only you can fill. Some of the most important growth in my life happened during periods of solitude. Periods where I wasn't dating anyone. Periods where I was traveling alone. Periods where I was working on projects by myself, because in those moments I had nowhere to hide. I had to face my thoughts, my fears, my insecurities, my dreams. I had to develop practices and habits that sustained me. I had to learn who I was independent of my relationships, my achievements, my external validation. And what I discovered is that I'm pretty good company. I'm interesting, I'm resilient, I'm creative, I'm capable. All the things I was looking for in other people, I had within myself. I just never took the time to discover them because I was so busy seeking external validation. This is what walking alone gives you: self-knowledge, self-reliance, self-respect. These aren't selfish qualities, these are essential qualities. Because when you truly know yourself, respect yourself, rely on yourself, you show up differently in the world. You show up with confidence, not arrogance. You show up with boundaries, not walls. You show up with openness, not neediness. Let me tell you about a turning point in my career. I was at a place where I had achieved a certain level of success, and I could have stayed comfortable. I could have kept doing what was working. I could have played it safe. But there was this burning desire in me to do more, to challenge myself, to see what I was really capable of. And everyone around me was saying, "Why would you risk what you have? You've made it. Enjoy it." But I couldn't, because I knew there was more in me. I knew I was capable of more. So I made a decision that seemed crazy to everyone else. I left behind guaranteed success to chase uncertain potential. I walked away from comfort to embrace challenge. I chose growth over security, and I did it alone, against the advice of almost everyone I trusted. Was it scary? Absolutely. Did I doubt myself? Every single day. But you know what? It was the best decision I ever made, because it forced me to level up. It forced me to develop new skills, new relationships, new strategies. It forced me to become someone I wasn't before. And yes, I struggled. Yes, I faced rejection. Yes, there were moments where I thought I had made a terrible mistake. But here's what I learned: when you bet on yourself, you always win. Maybe not in the way you expected, maybe not on the timeline you wanted, but you always grow, you always learn, you always become more. And that's what life is about. It's not about arriving at some final destination where everything is perfect and you never face challenges again. It's about constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly becoming a better version of yourself. One of my favorite concepts is what psychologists call post-traumatic growth. We've all heard of post-traumatic stress, but post-traumatic growth is the idea that people can actually become stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more resilient as a result of going through difficult experiences. They don't just recover from trauma, they're transformed by it. They develop a deeper appreciation for life, stronger relationships, a greater sense of personal strength, new possibilities, and spiritual growth. But here's the key: this growth doesn't happen automatically. It happens when you actively engage with your challenges instead of avoiding them. It happens when you walk through the fire instead of running from it. It happens when you use your pain as fuel for your transformation instead of an excuse for your stagnation. Think about the caterpillar. It spends its life crawling on the ground, eating leaves, living a pretty limited existence. Then one day it builds a chrysalis around itself. And inside that chrysalis, do you know what happens? The caterpillar doesn't just grow wings. It completely dissolves. It turns into a soup. Its entire structure breaks down. And from that complete breakdown, something entirely new emerges: a butterfly. That's what transformation requires. You can't become the butterfly while clinging to the caterpillar. You have to be willing to dissolve, to let go of who you were, to embrace the uncertainty of the transformation process. And you have to do it alone. Nobody can go through your chrysalis with you. Nobody can become a butterfly for you. And here's the thing that nobody tells you: that in between stage, that soup stage, it's uncomfortable. It's disorienting. You don't know who you are anymore. You're not who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. And every part of you wants to go back to the familiar, back to the caterpillar, back to what you knew. But you can't. The only way out is through. So many people quit at this stage. They start the transformation and they enter the chrysalis. And then when it gets uncomfortable, when they're in the soup, when nothing makes sense, they try to go back. But you can't go back. You can only go forward. You have to trust the process. You have to trust that on the other side of this discomfort is something beautiful, something powerful, something worth the struggle. Walking alone is trusting yourself enough to stay in the chrysalis even when it's uncomfortable. It's believing in your transformation even when you can't see the results yet. It's having faith that you're becoming something greater even when all you see is soup. I want to talk about the concept of learned optimism versus learned helplessness. We talked about learned helplessness earlier, but learned optimism is the opposite. It's the practice of interpreting events in a way that empowers you rather than defeats you. It's seeing setbacks as temporary and specific rather than permanent and pervasive. It's believing that your actions matter, that your efforts make a difference, that you have agency in your life. This is a choice. Every single day, you wake up and you choose how you're going to interpret the events of your life. You choose whether you're going to see obstacles as insurmountable or as challenges to overcome. You choose whether you're going to see yourself as a victim or as a creator. You choose whether you're going to focus on what you don't have or on what you do have. And this choice, more than any external circumstance, determines the quality of your life. Two people can go through the exact same experience and emerge completely different. One becomes bitter, blaming the world for their misfortune. The other becomes better, using their experience as fuel for growth. The difference, their interpretation, their mindset, their choice. Walking alone requires you to develop learned optimism, because when you're alone, when you don't have anyone cheerleading for you, when you don't have anyone picking you up when you fall, you have to be your own source of encouragement. You have to be your own motivator. You have to be your own coach. And that requires a fundamental belief that things can get better, that you can grow, that your efforts matter. Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when I was dealing with criticism from every direction. People were questioning my choices, my talent, my worth. And I had a decision to make. I could internalize that criticism and shrink, or I could use it as motivation to prove them wrong. Not to prove something to them, but to prove something to myself. I chose the latter, and every negative comment, every dismissive remark, every doubt, I used it. I channeled it into my work. I let it fuel my determination. I let it sharpen my focus. And you know what happened? I became stronger. Not in spite of the criticism, but because of it. Because I chose to see it as fuel rather than poison. That's the power of your interpretation. That's the power of your mindset. External circumstances are neutral. It's your interpretation that gives them meaning. And when you walk alone, when you take full responsibility for your life, you realize that you have the power to choose that interpretation. You're not at the mercy of circumstances. You're the creator of your experience. Now, I want to address something important, the difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is chosen. It's healthy. It's restorative. It's time you spend with yourself for yourself, nurturing yourself. Isolation is imposed or self-imposed out of fear. It's cutting yourself off from connection, from support, from love. Isolation is harmful. When I talk about walking alone, I'm talking about developing the ability to be in solitude, to be comfortable with yourself, to not need constant external stimulation or validation. But I'm not talking about isolation. Humans are social creatures. We need connection. We need community. We need love. The key is to come from a place of wholeness, not neediness. There's a beautiful concept in relationships called interdependence. It's the sweet spot between dependence and independence. Dependence is when you need someone else to be okay. Independence is when you don't need anyone. Interdependence is when you're whole on your own, but you choose to connect with others, to share your life with others, to grow with others. Walking alone makes you independent. But the goal isn't to stay there forever. The goal is to become so whole, so complete, so secure in yourself that you can enter into interdependent relationships. Relationships where you bring your full self and the other person brings their full self, and together you create something beautiful. Not because you need each other to be complete, but because you choose each other to share the journey. I think about some of the most meaningful relationships in my life, and they all have this quality. They're not codependent. They're not based on need. They're based on mutual respect, mutual growth, mutual support. We challenge each other to be better. We celebrate each other's successes. We support each other through failures, but we're not responsible for each other's happiness. We're responsible for our own happiness, and we choose to share that happiness with each other. That's only possible when you've walked alone long enough to know who you are. When you've spent enough time with yourself to understand your values, your boundaries, your needs, your desires. When you've done the work of becoming whole, because then you're not looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone to complement you. Let me tell you about resilience. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you develop. And you develop it by going through hard things, by facing challenges, by failing and getting back up, by walking through the fire and discovering that you're fireproof. Every single time you face something difficult and you survive it, you're building resilience. You're building evidence that you can handle hard things. You're building trust in yourself. And here's the beautiful thing about resilience. It compounds. Each challenge you overcome makes you stronger for the next one. Each failure you bounce back from increases your belief in your ability to bounce back. Each time you walk alone and survive, you trust yourself a little more. Until eventually you develop an unshakable faith in yourself, a knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you'll figure it out. You'll be okay. You're more than okay. You'll thrive. This is what walking alone gives you: unshakable self-trust. And once you have that, once you truly trust yourself, you become unstoppable because you're no longer dependent on circumstances being perfect. You're no longer dependent on having all the answers. You're no longer dependent on everything going according to plan. You know that whatever happens, you'll adapt. You'll grow. You'll overcome. I want to talk about purpose for a moment. A lot of people think they need to find their purpose, like it's this hidden thing that they have to discover. But I believe purpose isn't found, it's created. Your purpose is whatever you decide to dedicate your life to. It's what you choose to make meaningful. And you can't create purpose in a crowd. You can't create purpose by following what everyone else is doing. You can't create purpose by living according to someone else's script. You have to walk alone long enough to hear your own voice. You have to get quiet enough to hear what your soul is calling you to do. You have to remove yourself from the noise of the world long enough to hear the whispers of your heart. For me, I discovered that my purpose wasn't just about personal success. It wasn't just about achievements or accolades or money. My purpose was about using whatever platform I had to inspire others, to show people what's possible, to be a voice for those who don't have one. But I only discovered that by spending time alone, by reflecting on what truly mattered to me, by thinking about the legacy I wanted to leave. What's your purpose? What makes you come alive? What would you do even if nobody was watching, even if nobody applauded, even if nobody cared? That's your purpose. And you owe it to yourself and to the world to pursue it. Not someday, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have permission. Now, today, in whatever small way you can. Because here's the truth: the world needs your gift. The world needs your unique contribution. There are people whose lives will be transformed by what you have to offer. But they'll never be transformed if you don't have the courage to offer it. They'll never be transformed if you keep playing small, if you keep waiting for permission, if you keep walking in the shadows instead of stepping into your light. Walking alone is stepping into your light. It's claiming your space, it's owning your voice, it's sharing your gift. Not arrogantly, not at the expense of others, but authentically, unapologetically, powerfully. Let me share something about success. Real success isn't about external achievements. Real success is about internal peace. It's waking up every day and being proud of who you are and how you're showing up in the world. It's living in alignment with your values. It's pursuing what matters to you, not what impresses other people. It's building a life that feels good on the inside. not just looks good on the outside. And the only way to achieve this kind of success is by walking alone long enough to define what success means to you. Not what your parents think success is, not what society thinks success is, not what social media thinks success is, what you think success is, what lights you up, what fulfills you, what makes you feel alive. For some people, success is building a business empire. For others, it's being a present parent. For others, it's creating art that moves people. For others, it's serving their community. There's no one right answer, but there is your answer, and you'll only find it by getting quiet, by getting honest, by getting real with yourself. I think about all the times I achieved something that looked impressive from the outside, but felt empty on the inside. Awards, recognitions, milestones that should have made me happy, but didn't, because they weren't aligned with my true values. They were achievements I was chasing because I thought I should, not because I wanted to. And let me tell you, there's nothing more hollow than achieving something that doesn't matter to you. That's why walking alone is so important. It forces you to strip away all the external noise and get clear on what truly matters to you. It forces you to stop performing for an audience and start living for yourself. It forces you to define success on your own terms. And once you do that, once you get crystal clear on what matters to you, everything changes. You stop comparing yourself to others because you're on your own path. You stop feeling jealous of other people's success because you're focused on your own growth. You stop feeling lost because you know exactly where you're going. Now, let's talk about the hard truth. Walking alone means some people won't come with you. Some people will try to stop you. Some people will judge you. Some people will misunderstand you. Some people will leave. And that's okay. That's necessary, because as you grow, as you evolve, as you step into your power, you're going to outgrow some relationships, some situations, some versions of yourself. And this is where it gets painful, because we want everyone to be happy for us. We want everyone to support us. We want everyone to celebrate our growth. But the reality is, some people are invested in who you were, not who you're becoming. Some people are comfortable with the small version of you because it makes them feel better about staying small themselves. Some people will feel threatened by your growth because it highlights their stagnation. This is not your problem to fix. You cannot shrink to make others comfortable. You cannot dim your light to make others feel better about their darkness. You cannot abandon your dreams to maintain relationships with people who don't support those dreams. That's not love. That's dysfunction. That's codependence. That's settling. Real love celebrates growth. Real love encourages evolution. Real love says, go, fly, become everything you're meant to be, and I'll be here cheering for you. If the people in your life can't do that, if they're pulling you back, if they're planting seeds of doubt, if they're making you retreat, this response paused because Claude reached its max length for a message. Hit continue to nudge Claude along. Continue.